So for stable monster cards, there's only really two of them, and that's Yugioh and maxx. All the other ones on this list I'm going to talk about are pretty much a step above side deck cards. Side deck cards being cards that are put in there specifically to counter certain decks, like Kinetic Soldier, you know, for 6 Samurais and stuff like that. So anyways, Yugioh, tuner, level 1, 0 attack, 0 defense, spellcaster, light type monster, who is a really good hand trap for negating your opponent's effects, because effect negation is very necessary in today's metagame. maxx, draw a card every time your opponent special summons. Good way to stop your opponent from making plays, or if they go through with it anyway, you draw a ton of cards. All the other ones are just would be considered semi-staples because they are really good in a lot of decks, but not every single deck like maxx and Yugioh. And even they're not good in every single deck. There's not a single card that's good in every single kind of deck, because there are some really weird specific decks that do one thing where you wouldn't want a maxx in there. Like a deck that runs no monsters probably wouldn't want a maxx. Or actually, it's not really good in bubble beat decks either, because it's really heavy with spell and traps where you only want to have bubble man in your hand on your first turn so you can special summon them. Gortz, he's a really good staple card. If you know for a fact that you're not playing a field spell card, or that your field will be cleared often, Gortz is a great addition to your deck. Basically, if someone skips their turn without playing any monsters, chances are they have a Gortz in their hand. Everybody knows who Gortz is, and he's good in a lot of decks. Tragodia, it's like a Gortz, except you don't have to have a completely clear field, you just have to take battle damage. Bring him out, he gains attack equal to the amount of cards you have in your hand, and he has 2 really good effects that allow him to go for synchro, that allow him to be good in synchro decks and XYZ decks by copying a level of a monster in your grave, or stealing one of your opponent's monsters if you happen to have a level in your hand equal to one of the monsters your opponent has. Thunder King Bryo is only this high up in the list because I thought it would look neat to have all these other ones in a nice little row like that. He's okay. I mean, he's really good in the decks that he's good in, but if you're a deck that really relies on adding cards to your own hand, his effect probably wouldn't work too well with you. Guide of the Underworld, on the other hand, is a lot more versatile. She, back when she was at 3, and Sangan was a thing, was absolutely a staple in almost any deck, because she's still a really good staple. If you're like if you don't want to run a whole bunch of spell or traps, and you need to add 2 more slots to your deck, Guide of the Underworld is a great choice, because it goes for these 2 generic XYZ monsters. Usually you go into a wind-up Zenmite for this guy, because wind-up Zen mains is a really good card to open up with. If you draw into Guide of the Underworld, just summon her out, bring out another one, go into a Zenmite, and let your opponent destroy his own cards by attacking into him. Morphine Jar is a nice staple that's good in a lot of decks that people don't really run anymore because he's not fast. Although he is still an excellent choice, but I mean, a whole bunch of people just don't really run him anymore, and I don't really run him in any of my decks either, but he is still a solid choice. Card Trooper allows you to mill 3 cards from the top of your deck. Obviously that's good in any kind of deck that is okay with any kind of milling, plus his second effect of being able to draw a card every time he's destroyed makes him a great Call of the Haunted target if it's about to be MST'd. Chaos Hunter, if your opponent special summons a card, you can discard a card to special summon this card from your hand, and your opponent cannot remove cards from play. I've had people quit out on me as soon as I summon this guy out a couple times, but he's pretty much has the same effect as the Ghost Destroyer, except he can be special summoned a little easier, because you still have to rely on your opponent to special summon a monster, and if they don't, she's a level 7 monster, so you can't just bring her out easily. But if you do bring her out, she has pretty high attack, and her effect is really good at locking down your opponent. Mech Lord Emperor Wisely. Ooh, I completely butchered that name. If one of your monsters is destroyed by a card effect, so say you use Torrential Tribute or Dark Hole to destroy your own cards, you can special summon this guy out. He has an effect kind of like the Malefic monsters where only he can attack, but he also has the effect of absorbing one of your opponent's synchro monsters if they happen to play a synchro deck, which probably they, well, synchros are a little bit more prevalent in today's metagame than they used to be. So that's not really effect though. His really good effect is the once per turn you can negate a spell card. That is worth this guy being out all by himself, because that one effect is, it's really good to just negate one of your opponent's spell cards, because that could completely just shut down your opponent. Just that one spell card negate. Even if you stop one card with this card before he's destroyed, that's good, because he has a really high attack, 2500. He special summons when one of your cards is destroyed, so if your opponent's trying to go for game, you bring this guy out, and oh, they can't really attack over him that easily because he has 2500 attack. Plus, you can negate a spell card once per turn, which is pretty good. Snowman Eater, not really a staple, it's just a card I like. He has 1900 defense, and he has the Man-Eater bug effect, where you can destroy one monster on the field. Target one, yeah, it's a mandatory effect, so if you flip him up on your turn, then you have to destroy himself if there's no other cards in the field. But the good thing about this guy is that he's a level 3 monster with 0 attack, so he's a prime target for, dang, I always forget the name of that guy, Debris Dragon, there we go. And you can, you know, bring out Black Rose Dragon with this guy. And that's not really the good part about him. The good thing is he has really high defense for an effect that allows you to destroy cards. So if you're playing any kind of deck that requires tributes, and you don't want to play frogs for some reason, or you don't have some kind of tribute engine, Snowman Eater is a nice choice, because he has 1900 defense, which means he has a very high chance of surviving an attack, while at the same time destroying one of your opponent's monsters. Battle Fader is probably a way better option than Snowman Eater if you're playing a deck that needs extra tributes, because if you just don't have any monsters on your side of the field and your opponent goes for a direct attack, end the battle phase and special summon Battle Fader, and you have a tribute for your next turn. This card is a staple in many decks that require tons of tributes, like Frog Monarchs. I can't really think of any other decks besides Monarchs that use Battle Fader, but he would be a staple in those kinds of decks too. Swift Scarecrow, at the very bottom of the list, because he is a really good card for stopping attacks. It's kind of in decks where you need to control your life points, or where you know you don't have monsters on the field often and you don't want to use Battle Fader, or you are using Battle Fader and you need to add other cards as well, or if you don't want to special summon a monster so that your opponent can have piercing damage or a way to actually inflict damage to you. So Scarecrow is usually used over Battle Fader in Exodia decks, because you don't want any cards on the field when you're playing those kinds of decks, just in case your opponent has a piercer. And these are only here because of Tour Guide. Leviathan Sea Dragon's nice for recycling remove from play monsters, which does happen from time to time since everyone and their mom plays Dimensional Prison and Bottomless Trap Hole. Also, Wind Up Zenmite is usually the prime target for Tour Guide of the Underworld. And the ones down here are a little bit, they would be considered semi-staples. You know, not, well, the only staple cards are Vectviller and maxx. All the other ones are semi-staples. These are just a step below semi-staples, where they're really good in a vast majority of decks, but just not as good as these ones are. Well, except Snowman Eater. That one's personal preference entirely. Blackluster Soldier, if you're running a deck that has lots of dark monsters, you can run 2 of Vectvillers and you'll be able to bring out Blackluster Soldier very easily. He's a really good card, a really good card, I should say. You can banish a monster or attack twice. Both effects are amazing, and he's brought out by just banishing a light and dark monster from your grave. Neospacing Grandmole is good as a side deck option to bounce back annoying cards that can't be destroyed by card effects. And of course the 4 E-Dragons. If you're running a deck with lots of fire monsters, Blaster is good. A deck with a lot of water monsters, Tidal is good. A deck with lots of wind monsters, Tempest is good. Or a deck with lots of earth monsters, Redox is good.